what I have paid more attention to is actually what this conference is about. The spirit, the sense for a vision, the sense of how China can move forward, having accomplished what it already has. I tend to look more at the cultural and some of the political sides, but what strikes me most is an asserted and concerted effort to draw on and invigorate and move forward and to build on what has already been accomplished and to seek alternative new ways to progress. And that is a spirit that is to be much respected, or which I greatly respect. People can learn a great deal about China and what that says about their world. Sometimes people have said to me, were you, particularly in the difficult years in the early 1990s, were you interested in opening up China? I said, no, that's really up to the Chinese to decide. I'm interested in opening up America, because America, if they could understand China better, would also understand better what a multipolar world really is. And the United States right now is not particularly interested in supporting the development of a multipolar world. They're quite resistant to it. China is part of that broad historical current of third world South countries that have begun to alter the fundamental global structure of power. And that is all to the good, I think, and it's particularly important Americans learn about it. So learning about China, in a way, for Americans is part of that, because they understand something very important about the desire to stand up, to find your own ways of developing. They're not American ways, they're not American models, quite the opposite. It's an effort to find their own independent way and to do so and find greater social justice and equality, which is, I think, part of what these discussions about the Chinese dream are about. When the American dream as a phrase, and it's a rather new one, came in the 1930s, came in the Great Depression, and those who used that phrase wanted to find ways to overcome the problems of a business civilization, a society that had been reduced to profit, a society that wasn't handling the needs of its people. So it was a vision, it was a hope, it was an aspiration, and it was a national dream. It wasn't a universalistic one. It was about changing America, not the world. And so I tried to say that the dream that Washington has propagated since 1945 has been one with its universalism. It's much more about American power. It's not about what American better qualities really are. So the United States has a universalistic dream. China has a more national dream. China has a more openness to a multipolar world. The United States conception is really that there's one fundamental organization of the world, and it's the American vision of the world. So there are a variety of ways they're different. And in each of these ways, I think because China is more willing to live in a multipolar world, even the variability of civilizations, America really doesn't have a strong sense of different civilizations finding their own ways. China does. And that's much closer to the way I think many peoples in the world wish to develop and will be going. Former Senator Fulbright, who once had a comment where he said, Americans can never remember what other people tend not to forget. And his point was that there's a certain kind of amnesia almost about Americans when they look at the world. They may seem to be curious, but they actually come away with a line that Martin Luther King Jr. once said, when he said, the essence of American arrogance is the belief that we have everything to teach others and nothing to learn from them. And that's an old American trait. If you feel the eyes of the world are upon you, which is the old Puritan conception of a city on the hill, it's not that you're looking out at the world. But some of those words are changing, and China is adding many of those words now, and it's part of the greater change over these next few decades, I think. It's possible to avoid certain kind of conflicts, but on another level, I think time is on China's side in the long run, because the United States will slowly be pulling back as a superpower as the world changes. And as it does, China's role will also be changing. And I think that that's a good tendency. I think in the future world, there won't be a superpower anymore. There will be many powers. But that's going to be quite a while before that really happens. I think the concept of a future world is one in which different powers and different peoples no longer feel they're conforming to one model of development, one way of doing things, and I think more realistically understanding that they do have to find their own ways. China now has a Nobel Prize-winning writer, and that has been that was sort of an interesting wake-up call. I mean, very few Americans, for example, would have known about Lu Xun, but because of the award, more people have started to look at Chinese literature more broadly. So there is a diversity of ways that Chinese culture has had an impact in my culture, but it's just at the beginning. I think the message that China has is not one that is saying that other people have to become like them. It's a very different thing if you say, this is what we are, we want you to understand what we are. You know, it's good if you understand our language, or if you understand our culture, or you understand our history. But that's not saying what traditionally has been said by the United States. The United States, by and large, says, we do know the ways you should develop. We can tell you what the marketplace should be like. I think civilizations, there are many ways they communicate easily, you know, in popular culture, science, technology. But on a deeper level of history and historical creation, civilizations, there is no one universal ethos. I think humanity is plural. So I don't think there's one world civilization we're looking for. I don't think that can happen. But I think we are looking for a world in which the diverse civilizations each have a right to be heard. Even if they're small, they have a right to be heard.